A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Monday morning, the start of another week. And we still don't have any other players that we could talk about in terms of having signed for the club. We're still stuck on three, four if you want to include Andy Irving. And I'm holding on to the belief that by the time this summer transfer window shuts, West Ham United will have managed to complete enough business to ensure that we have a good chance of a good season ahead. Look, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Please forgive me for repeating myself. Subscribing costs nothing, and all my content is free as well. So if you like what you hear and if you like what you see, please do become a subscriber of the channel. That would really help. And also hit the like button if you enjoy this video. So, so far, many fans would suggest that our transfer business has been kind of underwhelming so far. Like I've just said, if you want to include Andy Irving, we've got 4 new faces to the squad this season. The shot in the dark 18-year-old Brazilian Luis Guilherme, a 27-year-old centre-back who many fans would say we've paid over the odds for. But given that Max Kilman is not even a consideration for the English national team, is 40 million too much for him? The third, of course, is our third or maybe even second choice keeper, depending on how things go. Wes Foderingham, who we got from Sheffield United when they got relegated. And of course, as I've mentioned, 24-year-old Scottish midfielder Andy Irving, who we signed for £1.5 million last summer, but then loaned him back out to Austrian club Klagenfurt, who we bought him off. So our recent friendlies, especially the ones in America, seems to suggest that there's still an awful lot of work to do. I mean, Lopetegui even talked about it, didn't he? Saying that there's a hell of a lot of work to be done. It was against Lopetegui's former club, who kind of looked pretty sharp and pretty decent. But let's be honest, their squad is quite a settled squad. Gary O'Neill has got them playing well, and we're still in transition. Of course, we've got players like Alphonse Areola, Lucas Paqueta, and Jared Bowen to come back. But I acknowledge that we did have back the likes of Antonio, Soufal, and Soucek in the squad, and Kudus as well. But it was their first game under Lopetegui. So I'm going to give them a bit of the benefit of the doubt for some of the performances that one or two of the players that recently came back have put in. But it's so evident that there are still 4 key areas at the very, very least that we need to try and strengthen before the season opens. And, it's going to be obvious what I'm going to say, but the first area is, of course, the right back position. Look, Lopetegui has tried to use Gideon Kodewa in that right back role. Admirable as he's tried to be in that role, it's not really that sort of position for the young player. Maybe Lopetegui sees things differently and maybe believes that Kodewa could indeed fit into that role long term. But if that's the case, if that's what Lopetegui believes, then who am I to argue? But Kodewa is primarily an attacking player. Kodewa has mainly played his football either as a sort of a number 10. He's played out wide on the wing, more as an attacking winger. Or at times he's played as a striker. So the strong suggestion is that apparently we're now back in for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. We've seemed to have gone through quite a few different right back options, and why we've not completed or gone for the deal for Kyle Walker-Peters continues to baffle me. But if it's Wan-Bissaka that we're going for, then let's just go ahead and get this deal done sooner rather than later. Look, we know, I've said it before, he's got, I think, the player's got injury concerns that we need to consider. And of course, he's on a very high wage. But nonetheless, it's not a wage that is going to sort of overwhelm West Ham. I mean, it will certainly fit in with our wage structure. With our defence against, again, showing weaknesses at the weekend against Wolves in the stateside friendly, Wan-Bissaka maybe is the sort of defender that we might need. He's not a very cavalier type of right back that would maraud forward. He's more of a solid right back, which in a way we kind of need, but in another way, it kind of goes against what Lopetegui wants for with his fullbacks. He likes his fullbacks to go forward. But look, if it's a solid player that we need, then Wan-Bissaka could be the answer. And also, he adds to our homegrown player tally as well. We've already got Aaron Creswell, James Ward-Prowse, Antonio, Danny Ings, Jared Bowen, Was Filderingham, and Max Kilman as our homegrown talent. Wan-Bissaka would make the eighth one. Look, 26 years of age, he's still a decent age. All right, like I said, his wages for a right back might be higher than what we want to pay, and it makes it an irony now, doesn't it? When our previous player Johnson was looking for a 60 grand a week salary, and we were considering that to be too high, and now it looks we pay almost double for Wan-Bissaka to come in. Like I said, the only serious injury I've got concerns about his injuries, but let's be fair on the player. The only serious injuries in his career came in the last two seasons, where in the 2022-23 season, he missed 8 games with a bad back. But it's last season, he missed a whopping 21 games last season, 10 of which were regarding a hamstring injury. And then that was quickly followed up by an unknown injury, which kept him out until March. He missed another 11 games because of that. But having said that, he came back strong and finished the season well. And if a deal can be done between 10 to 15 million pounds, like I said, let's get it done. Let's get it out of the way and let's move on. Now, it's evident that the next area we need to strengthen in is obvious, isn't it? And that is, of course, at centre back. Now, for those of you who managed to watch the game against Wolves, okay, it's only a friendly. I get that. It's about keeping players, getting players fit, and all that sort of stuff, getting them up to match fitness, and so on and so forth. But I'm sure many of you would have noticed just how terrible Kurt Zouma was in the game. Twice he left the defence exposed, especially on the right side. With Kodua, etc., by not being able to get back into his position quickly enough to help shore up the gaps in defence. And Wolves scored 2 goals from it. Lopetegui has been using a high line. He's been operating a high line during pre-season. And Zouma simply just doesn't fit that style of play. He can't cope with that style of play. He's just not got the pace. He's lost his pace, if he ever had any. And we're stuck with him at the moment. He's got a year left on his contract, 100,000 odd pounds a week or so. And I think if we can't sell him, and if we're not able to sell a Gerd as well, I think West Ham United are going to have to come to some kind of decision as to what they do with Kurt Zouma. He's not going to be played at all, or rarely. We're going to have a series of injuries with all our centre backs for Kurt Zouma to actually get on the pitch in the Premier League. So if we can't sell him, then what's going to happen? Half of me is beginning to think, do we bite the bullet and negotiate a contract severance with him? It's going to cost us money, but it's going to free up a role within the squad. It's going to free up a space within the squad to go out and get ourselves another centre back. Okay, it's going to cost us a lot of money to pay him off for the final season of his contract. But I just wonder if that might be a solution that West Ham United might well be considering. Now, there are options, apparently, new options that we seem to be going for. in the centre back areas, and the first of which is Toulouse centre back Logan Costa. Now, this player, 23 years of age, he's right-footed. He's been with Toulouse for 3 years after moving there from Lens for a fee of about 400,000 euros. He's represented France up to under 19 level, but he wasn't able to get a break into the seniors team. So he now represents Cape Verde in the senior internationals. He's described as a no-nonsense central defender, where his strengths mainly lie in his aerial ability. However, he needs to continue improving on his pace and passing skills. Well, in fairness, we've got Kurt Zouma for that. You know, if the ball was played up in the air only, then Kurt Zouma would be one of the best defenders in the world. But in the Premier League, that's not how it goes. And I'm not sure about Logan Costa. You know, if you don't possess pace under Lopetegui's system, whether he plays a midline or high line, and if you're not very good at passing, then I'm uncertain that this player would be the right choice. He's valued at about 10 million euros. And to be fair, I'm not sure, even at that price, he'd be a possible target. For me, the alternative is Kevin Danso, a completely altogether different proposition. He's got an interesting background. Started his career at Reading Youth System, moved to the MK Dons under their youth system at the age of 10, before moving to German club Augsburg at the age of 16. In 2019, at the age of 21, he went on loan to Southampton, but that spell didn't work out so well. That was followed by another loan move to German club Fortuna Dusseldorf, who I think are in the second tier of the Bundesliga. But on his return from that spell, Augsburg sold him to Lens in 2021 for a fee of about 5.5 million euros. And it's really from there that his career is taken off. He's made 114 appearances for the French club, and he's also represented Austria. He plays for the Austrian national team, and he was part of Euros 2024 recently. Now, not only does he have international experience, but at domestic level as well. Also, he's got Champions League experience. He's very comfortable on the ball. He's classed as a ball-playing defender. 6'3" frame naturally gives him good aerial advantage, and he uses his body strength well to hold off opponents. He has a very decent speed for a central defender, especially when playing a high line. And the 25-year-old central defender's stature has grown over the past few years, and there's been apparent interest from clubs like Juventus and more recently Bayern Munich. His contract at Lens still has 3 years to go, and the club will not really let him go on the cheap. There's a suggestion that he's valued at something like 25 million euros. But he's an interesting one. He sounds like quite a decent player. That again, a pretty decent player that will probably fit into Lopetegui's type of system. So I think we're going to have to just wait and see what happens with that one. Now, of course, there is also Trevor Chalobah from Chelsea, the other central defender to look out for. You know, I've mentioned him before. He's got 4 years left on his contract. But given that Chelsea's new boss, Enzo Maresca, is making it very clear that he plays no part in the future in Chelsea's plans, let's not forget he wasn't taken on the American tour recently by the club. There's a suggestion that possibly we could pick him up for around about £25 million. Now, for a player who is a very decent centre back, that could turn out to be a bargain. Now, let's be honest, yet again, we keep finding ourselves with players that we're linked to who have got terrible injury records. And the injury that he had at the beginning of last season kept him out for most of the season. He missed 26 games in total. So again, a possible risk. But I'm beginning to realize, like I said, that most of the players we're linked to have had some kind of bad injury or another. Is that what we attract these days? But look, Chalobah would also be another homegrown player, so he'll fit that criteria as well. And again, another one to look out for. Now, what about the left side of attacking play? Because that's another area that clearly we need to sort out. Now, again, for those who've been watching preseason football, you'd expect Maxwell Cornet to hit the ground running. I've been trying to boost him and saying that maybe he needs a proper, a proper run out to demonstrate what he's capable of. But unfortunately, he's running out of those opportunities because um, he had another terrible game against Wolves on Saturday. And he keeps demonstrating that he's got very little left to offer in his locker. And he just doesn't seem to be the answer to our left sided attacking play. Now, in fact, given the positions that he's played throughout his career, left back, left sided midfielder, even as a striker, etc., I'm not sure he's the answer to any of those areas. We need a natural left-sided attacking player, attacking midfielder, winger, whatever you want to call it, in order to ensure that we don't end up using the likes of Paqueta or Kudus out there as well. Now I know we bought Guilherme and he actually played out on the left for a little bit, but again, you can see it's not his natural game. So it's another area that we need to get players in for. And who are we going to get? Well, apparently, Victoria Guimaraes' left-sided attacking player, Jota Silva, has been mentioned again. Now, the links to the player have been there since what, the beginning of the transfer window? But there's been no movement as yet. Apparently, we do not agree with his 17 million euro valuation. And it's been suggested that we're playing the long game to try and get him for around 5 million euros less. Just make the offer. If that's what you want, and you think he's only worth 12 million euros, why wait? What are we waiting for? Or perhaps, really, we're not that interested in that player. And it's mainly social media that's driving this transfer story without much substance attached to it. I guess only time is going to tell whether we do have an interest or not. But there are, however, some other names that are worth considering. Now, I've adopted the philosophy of what Steidten is apparently meant to do. Looking at players who are in the last year of their contracts and players who primarily are under 25 years of age, that's apparently one of the strategies that Steidten has. So if that's the case, there is one player that we kind of all know about, and that is Jovic And Rowe of Norwich City. Now, I think it was last summer that we were apparently linked to Jovic And Rowe. But nothing materialized as usual. Nothing does normally materialize when it's a young player under David Moyes. Now, he's considered at the time, or even still considered, to be honest, that he's one of the best attacking players in the Championship. He's a versatile attacking player who can operate on the left, he can play on the right, and he can play in the middle of the park as well. However, the right-footed player has mainly operated on the left-hand side. Now, he had a not relatively, he had a very good season for Norwich last season. In 38 appearances, he scored 13 goals and with 4 assists. Like I said, he's still only 21 years of age. He's got only a year left on his contract. And apart from West Ham, the only other team that will be of interest that are interested in him are Brentford. No surprise there. He developed through the Norwich youth system. He's got great pace, fantastic dribbling ability, and great agility. He possesses a hell of a lot of flair, a hell of a lot of creative flair. He will certainly need to improve on his defensive contributions, as well as making better decisions when under pressure. But he's only 21, and he could learn that, just like Guilherme is going to have to learn that. It's quite possible that because he's in his last year of his contract, we can pick him up for anything up to maybe £15 million. And it's most certainly a player that could add some pace into West Ham's lineup, and certainly one that we should be seriously considering. Now, finally, of course, we've got the issue with our striker situation. We desperately need a striker. And again, if you watch the game against Wolves, their striker, Cunha, demonstrated what a decent striker can do when they're on form and when you've got a target man. Now, look, the saga keeps going on with John Duran. Are we going to get him? Are we going to spend the money for him? It's been suggested now that West Ham United have gotten to the point where they're now looking at alternatives. The board, are keeping their interest in other targets pretty quiet, because apparently what they're suggesting is that they would rather try and do a bit of business on the quiet rather than it being scattered all over social media. I don't mind that, to be quite honest with you. It makes my job a little bit harder in order to be able to tell you who we're targeting. So all I can do is speculate again. And the best speculation I can do is use the same principle that I did for the left-sided attacking player. Look at someone who's around about up to about 25 years of age, maybe a year or two older in this particular case, and who's in the final year of their contracts at the current clubs. Now, I want to include Ivan Toney and Jonathan David in the list, but let's put them both to one side because I want to focus on one name that is quite interesting, and again, a name that we all have heard of before. And that is Luka Jovic, who's currently at AC Milan. Now, since leaving Eintracht Frankfurt, Jovic's career hasn't quite gone to plan. He made a mega money move to Real Madrid back in 2019, 63 million euros, but that went quite badly, where 2 years later, he was loaned back to the German club. In 2022, he then left Real Madrid on a free transfer to Italian club Fiorentina. But he stayed there for just one season before moving again on another free transfer to AC Milan. Now, when he was at Frankfurt, in 93 appearances, he scored 40 goals with 10 assists. And that was the catalyst for Real Madrid making a move on him. In 51 appearances for the Spanish club, he scored just 3 goals with 5 assists. Then at Fiorentina, in 50 appearances, a little bit more better, but still not fantastic. 50 appearances, 13 goals with 3 assists. And more recently at AC Milan, a modest 9 goals in 30 appearances. Now, I checked his injury record to see if the injuries played any part in the unsuccessful spells at the various clubs that he's played for since Eintracht Frankfurt. And whilst at Real Madrid, he did keep picking up niggly little injuries that kept him out for like 2, 3, 4 games at a time. So he wasn't getting a consistent run of games. He actually did miss in total 34 games for small injuries, nothing big, but niggly injuries that kept him out, like I said, for a game or two here and there. But it wasn't anywhere near as bad. His injury record wasn't anywhere near as bad for either Fiorentina nor AC Milan. But that does seem to have contributed to the Serbian's international loss of form, especially when it was at Real Madrid. And he lost a lot of credit for that as well. Now, therefore, you would ask, well, why are you even suggesting that someone like Luka Jovic could do well for West Ham? Well, his best time at Frankfurt was when he played in a front three alongside Ante Rebic and Sebastian Haller. Remember him? He's got great. Now, that could translate into playing in a front three. We know Lopetegui wants to play in a front three for West Ham. Imagine him with players like Kudus and Bowen either side of him. Could that work? He's got great composure in front of goal. He's a bit of a sort of a fox in a box type player. He's a good focal point for players to play around. AC Milan are looking to build. They seem to be investing quite heavily in their squad. And there's been suggestions. We've visited AC Milan over the last week or so about some of their defenders as well. Now, they might be looking to move Luka Jovic on. And he could be available for something up to what? Around 20 million euros? He's got a year left on his contract. He's still only 26 years of age. And he may well be a player that might be worth going for. He's got to be an option, hasn't he? It's got to be an interesting option. Steidten'S going to know all about him in the number of years that he spent in the German league. So let's see what materializes from that as well. Of course, we're still waiting to see what is going to happen with John Duran. Are we going to end up walking away from this deal as been suggested, or are we going to end up coughing up the money that they want? Apparently now they want £40 million plus add-ons. I mean, it's getting to a stage where it's becoming quite ridiculous. We know that the player wants, we all saw him do the hammer sign on social media. We know he wants to come to West Ham United. We know that Aston Villa need to sell in order to continue building their squad, like I've said before in other shows. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, West Ham United are gonna have to make a decision. Are they going to offer the full money, 40 million and nothing else, or are they going to try and go back once more with, I don't know, a 30 an offer of over 35 million with add-ons? Let's see what happens. But if that doesn't materialize, then it's absolutely right for West Ham to start looking elsewhere. In fact, I hope they're already looking elsewhere so that we don't keep getting our pants pulled down in the transfer window. Look, thank you all for watching. I'm going to be back with the West Ham Weekly on Monday night. This is going out Monday morning, so do join me for that show as well. I'm going to have a guest on as well. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button. Please do hit the like button, and I'll see you all on Monday evening.